Hey there, gardeners. This is Shannie from Botanical Interests, and today we are going to be talking about all things fertility and fertilizer in the garden. Fertility is so essential when talking about gardening. You absolutely cannot grow in a garden that doesn't have good fertile soil, rich microbial activity happening in the soil. Without those bazillions of beneficial microbes and without all of that rich nutrition, your plants are just going to struggle or barely grow along. So in order to really optimize your growing, you do need to dial in your fertility game. It doesn't mean you need to use synthetic fertilizer. It doesn't mean you even need to use some of these organic fertilizers. It might mean that you just really want to work on your soil's health and increase your organic matter, increase the good quality of your soil in order to feed your plants that way. We're going to cover the whole spectrum of plant fertility on this video. We're going to start with the non-fertilizer options, talking about ways to naturally enhance your fertility of your soil. I'm going to go over a number of methods that I use. And then we're going to finish the video off by talking about both granular and liquid types of organic fertilizer. Today, I'm not really going to talk about synthetic fertilizers. I may touch on that a little bit later as to why I'm not going to do that. But basically, I don't use synthetic fertilizers in my garden. I don't have much to talk on that topic. And we're just going to dial in and talk about organic methods today. This is also going to serve as a little mini tour and update for the early spring in my garden, because we're going to pop around to different locations on the land and talk about fertility. So come along with me. We're going to see what's growing, how things are looking, and talk all about fertility. First things first, let's just talk about basic soil health. Now, plants absolutely thrive when they are given rich, good quality soil. Almost every plant thrives when it has higher organic matter, richer soil. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, most plants want loose, well-drained soil. That means soil that is not overly soggy or overly burdened with clay, something where the water can drain out nicely. But these plants, they want rich, nutrient-dense soil. So that means packed with organic matter. This means that the soil can retain nutrients. It can hold on to the microbial activity and the nutrients nicely so that your plants can feed and work with the nutrients that are in the soil. If our soil is very poor, like my native soil here in Florida, it's very sandy and there's very low organic matter composition, that's going to be really hard for my plants to pull the nutrients from the soil, because a lot of the nutrition and the water is just going to be flowing right out of the soil because the particles are too large. Probably the number one way to improve your soil right away is to add some good quality, well-rotted compost. Well broken down compost will be high in organic matter, which is going to help to retain nutrients in your soil. It's going to improve the texture of your soil. And if it's good quality compost, it's also going to be rich in beneficial microbes, which is really essential for building a network of beneficial fungi and bacteria that is beneath the soil's surface. And that is what is going to work with your plant, the exuding sugars out of your plant's roots, to make a network of nutrition flowing in and out of your plants. So the better quality compost, the better. If you can make your own or you can source some good quality compost, that's one of the best ways to ensure that your plants are going to thrive. And I make compost here in my garden. I am not super dialed in on my compost game right now. That's because I have children and I'm just super duper busy. So I kind of passively compost. I do pay attention to the ratio of nitrogen versus carbon and my browns versus greens so that I can have well-balanced compost. I do turn my compost pile fairly regularly and I make sure to put some water on it. Those are the most important factors to get decent quality compost. But I'm also not afraid to just buy in some compost when I know that I'm not meeting my soil's needs and I need better quality stuff. So whether you buy it in or make it yourself, get yourself some good quality compost. That is going to be the foundation for good soil. Another excellent way to power up and boost up your soil's health is to add things like good quality manures. I love to add rabbit manure to my garden. Rabbit manure is what is called a cold manure. It is not super high in urea. It's not going to burn your plants, and it can be added directly to your garden without burning your plants. Rabbit manure is also a nice way to add some good quality texture to your soil. We call them bunny berries. I did a video about bunny berries for my Florida Food Forest channel. You could check that out. But manures, as long as they are properly broken down, are an excellent addition to your garden. I grew up on a horse farm and I loved adding horse manure to my garden. But the thing with horse manure, cow manure, definitely chicken manure, is that you have to give it quite a bit of time to break down. Turn the compost pile, turn the manure pile, do whatever you have to do to get it to break down so it's not too hot and it's not going to burn your plants. But animal manures are an excellent addition. Another fabulous amendment is seaweed. Now, I used to live on an island, so I would go down to the shore and I would access the public right-of-way and I would collect seaweed and put it on my garden and let it rot over the winter. Seaweed is a fabulous addition to your garden. If you can get your hands on some good, clean seaweed, definitely get out there and put some seaweed in your garden. Now, I am in Central Florida with sugar sand. This means large textured granules of sand that is very, very susceptible to the root knot nematode. This is a nematode that is naturally present in sandy soils, and it really makes growing things like tomatoes and brassicas and lots of other crops very challenging because it will infect the roots of your plant and it will make nutrient uptake very challenging. One of the best ways that I combat the root knot nematode, one of the greatest amendments that I can put in my soil is crab meal. This is crab shell that's just broken down. Crab meal is one of my very favorite amendments for the garden. I highly recommend you get yourself lobster shell or crab meal because it contains this molecule called chitin. Chitin is naturally present in the crab's shell. Chitin helps to break down the outer shell of the root knot nematode, and so it helps to protect against the root knot nematode. It is incredibly helpful for your garden. There's also a number of other benefits to putting crab shell in your garden, so I highly recommend it. Worm compost is another indispensable addition to the good quality nutrition of your soil. I love my worm farm. My husband has really dialed in on his worm farming skills, and we have a red wiggler worm farm that he has been feeding regularly, and we have worm tea coming out of the little spigot, and we also have really nice worm castings. I managed to put a little worm casting in with each of my tomato plantings this season. My tomatoes were so happy, and I have to say, I really do think that the worm castings played a role in that. Worm castings are incredible for your soil's nutrition. I highly recommend adding some worm castings if you can. It's also a fabulous way to compost. I mean, you're not going to be breaking down monumental mountains of compost with your red wiggler worms because they are on the slower side, but you get a really high quality product at the end. So definitely give worm composting a try. My final tip for naturally building your soil's quality is cover cropping. Now, I do find people are a bit intimidated when it comes to the topic of cover cropping, and it's really unnecessary. Cover cropping is not rocket science. Cover cropping is simply to plant a crop whose sole intention is to improve the quality of the soil rather than the intention being a beautiful flower for smelling or cutting or a vegetable for eating. A cover crop is really planted just for the soil's health. There might be some additional benefits, some other side uses, but you're really cover cropping for the benefit of your soil. I like to use fenugreek as one of my cover crops here on my garden. I've done that many times. Fenugreek is something that works well in my climate. It matures quickly and it's a legume, which means it takes unusable nitrogen molecules from the atmosphere and it transforms it to usable nitrogen down in the soil, which makes my soil more rich in nitrogen, which makes that next crop that I plant, my main crop, that is going to do better because there's more available nitrogen in the soil. So cover cropping can do a number of helpful things for your soil. If you have very heavy clay soil, you have very, very dense soil and you need to improve your drainage, the daikon radish is an excellent cover crop. Folks will sow their daikon radish in the late summer, let it grow up, then let it kill off in the winter if you live somewhere cold enough to do a winter kill. And those porous leftover roots from the daikon are going to improve the drainage of your soil. Improving the organic matter is also a general way to improve the drainage of your soil if you have dense clay. You can also use cover crops to boost nutrition. You can use a legume cover crop in order to add more nitrogen to your soil. You can use something like a root crop, like a daikon, to make your soil more porous. And any cover crop that you choose, if you turn it into your soil, you're going to increase the organic matter because you are going to be breaking down organic matter, or leaves, plants, and breaking that down into your soil and therefore improving the texture of your soil. So there's really no going wrong with a cover crop. I think folks get a little nervous that they might grow something that turns into a weed, and you do want to be mindful that you're not going to grow something that is going to perennialize, turn into a aggressive weed and become a problem for you. But as long as you avoid that, which is fairly easy to do as long as you think about the climate that you live in and how you're going to plan to kill off your cover crop. Aside from that, cover crops are pretty easy. And if you check the Botanical Interest catalog or on the website, there's a list of really helpful cover crops. So you can choose from a number of cover crops. There are also plenty of seeds in the catalog that aren't necessarily listed as a cover crop that make a wonderful cover crop. So we've covered a number of ways to avoid using external fertilizers and just to work with your soil's health, improve your soil's health in other ways. But now let's shift over to talking about actually adding fertilizer to your garden. Now I have two different products here, a granular and a liquid type fertilizer. They're both USDA organic certified. This is something that I do try to aim for with my garden, is I do try to look for things that are OMRI certified. I'm not putting synthetic fertilizers in my garden. There are a whole host of reasons that why I'd like to avoid synthetic fertilizers, but probably the most important for me here in Florida is because, as I discussed before, we have very sandy soil in Florida. This means that nutrients tend to just flow right through my soil's texture and into the water table. If I put some really high nitrogen, high numbered synthetic fertilizer into my soil, it's going right to the water table. It is going flushed right into a river where maybe a manatee lives. I don't want to necessarily dose my local manatee population with synthetic fertilizer. Now, when I use the organic fertilizers that are granular or something that is kelp or fish-based, these numbers, the NPK numbers, are much lower on these. This is not going to just blast right down to my water table and flush out into the backyard of a beautiful sea cow. These are going to stay in the spot that I leave them, and they're going to feed my plants. So this is the main chief reason that I stick with my organic fertilizers. I know it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than going with some really high numbers. So let's talk about the difference between a granular and a liquid organic fertilizer. Here is my granular. Now, granular fertilizer is going to look a little bit like this, sort of like tiny crumbs. It can be made from a number of different things. You can get kelp-based, you can get fish-based. There's many different types of organic granular fertilizer. Granulars are going to be a slower release and a longer term feeding option. Granular fertilizer is excellent to put on your rose bushes, on your fruit trees. They can go into the planting site. I always take a little scoop of this organic granular and I pour it into the planting site of my tomato plants. I incorporated it right into the soil with my onion patch this season to just get a foundation of fertility to get my onions going strong. Longer term fertility, and granular is really specifically nice in Florida where I'm at in the summer because it's going to sit still a little bit longer. It's not going to flush out so quickly because in the summer it's so very hot. Microbial activities going like crazy, and sometimes it could just burn right through your fertilizer. So this is going to sit and work a little bit longer. The thing with granular that I like as well is that you don't have to reapply it so often. So maybe I'll come by once a month and throw some granular down, and that's going to be good enough. The downside of granular is that it's not going to give an instant hit of nutrition. It's not going to instantly jump start your soil's microbial activity like a liquid. So this is something that I'm giving for long-term steady feeding, not an immediate overnight boost. That brings me to the liquid fertilizer. The liquid organic fertilizer, something based in fish, maybe kelp. There's a number of different formulations. The liquid is going to give a quicker hit for the nutrition. It's going to boost the microbial activity in the soil. a little bit quicker than the granular. So this is something that gets applied more regularly. Some folks will be going once a week or bi-weekly with their liquid fertilizer application. So it's kind of a live fast, die young situation. Give it more often, but it does work more instantaneously. This is also a preferred formula for wintertime gardening, say here in Florida. Things are cooler, the microbial activity in the soil has slowed down, so you give a liquid fert for faster, more effective results. So typically, you don't have to follow this, but a lot of gardeners will go granular in the summer in Florida and liquid in the winter. That's something you can do. You don't have to be dogmatic about that, but it is that's a rule that some gardeners will follow. And now let's talk about the NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Now, when you're looking for a backyard gardener's fertilizer, gardening like I am in raised beds and small garden plots, I do recommend you go for low, even balanced numbers. This is usually what you're going to find with an organic fertilizer anyway. It really takes a synthetic fertilizer formulation to get those really high NPK numbers or those really imbalanced ones. So the NPK ratio of this particular product is 3:3:5. That's fairly balanced. This is got a little bit more potassium because they want to boost flowering on the plants. So it is a fruiting and flowering fertilizer. So that's why the last number is a touch higher. But again, these numbers are low and they're even. That is generally a safe bet for your backyard garden or anyone who's worried, oh, I'm nervous about applying fertilizer for the first time because I don't want to burn things. Well, if you stick with low, even numbers, you're not gonna have to worry about burning your plants. So for this granular, about 1 cup of granular per mature sized plant. So if I have a small, just becoming established plant, I'm gonna give it about a 1/2 cup of the granular. Now, every formulation is different. I don't know if you're growing with this exact same stuff. So you do need to please read your bag. Please read your bag or your jug, because I cannot tell you with definitive certainty what you're growing and what your plants are going to individually need. You do have to read your bag. But that is also the benefit of growing with the organic, lower number balanced stuff, is that if you were to make a mistake and add a little too much, you're not gonna burn the heck out of your plants. You shouldn't. But just a little bit right around the base of the plant. Granular is also, like I said, excellent for incorporating at planting time. If you're making a new container, a new pot, you just incorporate this right into your soil formulation so that it's nice and incorporated into the soil. Each plant getting a little sprinkle right around the root base is ideal. Okay, let's do a little hands-on demo on the liquid fert. So this formulation needs to be shaken very, very well. And then it's about a 1/2 cup for each gallon of water it's diluted in. We are going to dilute this formulation. So we gotta open it up. This is brand new. There we go. Definitely molasses in there. Okay. So I'm going for like a 1/2 cup each. I'm not gonna be super uptight about the quantity here because I can afford to be lackadaisical because it's organic. It's not the super strong stuff. So I got a couple cups here. I'm gonna pour in, then I'm going to fill my 5-gallon bucket. That'll get to be the dilution rate that I'm looking for. And then I'm going to just soil drench around all of my plants here. And I definitely wanna do nice liquid fert on my garlic here, because garlic is a moderately heavy feeder, not as heavy as, say, onions. We're gonna do our onion patch next. But garlic is a moderately heavy feeder, so I'm gonna be hitting it pretty hard with the liquid fert for the next few weeks to really get some growth going and make sure that I get a nice onion harvest, garlic harvest. Now I'm just gonna dilute this with my hose. I'm trying to rinse out this bucket because I don't want to lose a drop of this stuff. It's not the cheapest fert out there. And I'm just going to fill my 5-gallon bucket to get it properly diluted. And I'm just going to give a few cups of the liquid to each plant. My little pansies here. Of course, my pansies will be happy with a little drink. Liquid fert, I mean, it's handy because you're also getting a little watering session in here. You can, if you're handy like that, you can figure out a fertigation system where you are putting fertilizer right into your drip irrigation system. I've worked on farms where there was fertigation happening, but I'm not personally doing it on my plot of land just because I don't have the technology for it. I don't have time to put in a dosatron or any of the equipment necessary. Just a little bit strapped for cash. Can't be pulling that kind of stuff off, but that is a very handy way to get your fertilizer in regularly. Just have to make sure you have a backflow preventer to make sure you don't have the fertilizer going back into your well. Here's a good example of a question that you'll often get about newly established plants that are just a few inches tall. When you're using something with low balanced numbers, you can get right in there and fertilize almost right away as soon as they start having their first true leaves. Whereas when we're growing and we're using a synthetic fertilizer, sometimes that stuff is just too hot to be throwing on a new tender plant. So that's just another benefit of working with the organic fertilizers, is that you don't have to worry about accidentally burning your tiny young seedlings. Also, talking about timing with fertility, I don't bother to put fertilizer on my newly sprouted seedlings, and you should not either. Wait until your plants are a few inches tall and they've got their first true leaves out. That's when you're going to want to start feeding them. Every seed comes with, as they say, it's lunch packed with it. So when it throws out the first seed leaves, they're going to be pulling from the nutrition that's naturally hidden in the embryo of the seed, and they don't need fertility just yet. So after it makes its first true leaves and it starts to get to be a few inches tall, that's when you're going to start supplementing and adding fertility if you want to. Before that, it's just not necessary. So we're here in the raised bed garden. It is the month of March. Things are off to a slow start this year because it was incredibly cold this winter. I also had been decimated by my free-range chickens. So my garden is definitely behind where it should be. A boost of fertility is going to help that. For most of my veggie beds here, I'm gonna go with my liquid fertilizer, but I do have a key lime tree in here, which I am gonna use granular on that. And I will probably put a little granular in my hanging baskets because I've noticed that my irrigation hits my hanging baskets very regularly, so they're flushing out quickly. So I want something that's going to stay in a little bit longer and stick around. So I'm gonna put some granular on my smaller containers, my fruit trees, and my hanging baskets in the raised bed garden. And here, let's just get a look at how things are looking here. I've got carrots going, they're a little bit behind. I've got some peas that are looking really happy here on my TP. My PTP is very happy. My hanging baskets are doing really great. So it just needs a little burst of fertility, and things are gonna be looking really gorgeous here very soon. This is my key lime tree. It was nearly killed off in the very hard freeze we had this winter, but it's coming back strong. I also managed to get some really cute little pansies in, but we're going granular for the little key lime because we want them coming back with a vengeance, and I want my little pansies to keep going. My pansies don't have much longer before it gets too hot for them, but we're gonna give them the best shot that we can. I've also got a little nasturtium in here, so it's gonna need a small boost. But yes, I'm so happy to see that my little key lime is on the way back. It's on the mend. And you can see this granular, this is going to stay in the soil a little bit longer. This is almost just pure pine bark mulch in this pot, so I want something that is going to stick around the pot a little bit longer. Liquid fertilizer will kind of pour right through here. Now let's check in on my garlic, potatoes, and fenugreek beds. Okay, so this is just this little alleyway garden that I have connecting two different parts of my land, heading towards my southeast garden. I have some garlic here, just like in the raised bed garlic. I am going to give this a nice shot of feed. I could do granular or liquid, honestly. It wouldn't really make a difference with the garlic. Same with the potatoes. I've already hilted my potatoes once. They are cruising along, looking fabulous. I'm just gonna give them a little bit more of a feed. And then over here, the fenugreek. This is my cover crop. I'm not going to feed the fenugreek. It doesn't need it. This is actually fixing nitrogen, adding nitrogen to my soil for me. So I'm not going to feed my fenugreek. I'm gonna let it do its job. So here is a cover crop in action. Fenugreek right here. This is a legume taking nitrogen, putting it in the soil from the atmosphere. So we are going to feed this little row and move along. All right, here I am in front of one of the heaviest feeding crops, the onions. I'm going to make sure to spend my time, I'm gonna make sure to take my time feeding the onions Each plant wants to get a healthy dose because I want to make sure these get as fat as possible, as quickly as possible. I'm gonna have to make myself a new batch of the liquid fert if I'm gonna get this row done. It's gonna take a while, but it's gonna be well worth it because I do like some big fat onions. Onions are one that's going to be regularly fed in my garden. So once a week, once every 2 weeks on the liquid, once a month on the granular for these. And here we are in my tomato field. My tomatoes are looking good. You know why? Well, a couple reasons, but one reason is because I put some of that granular fertilizer right in the planting site with each plant. I also put some crab shell meal in each hole and some worm castings. So these tomatoes better perform because they have gotten some serious love. So each plant has gotten a nice little dose of my granular fertilizer, which means today, since that was only a few weeks ago, today I'm just gonna give them a hit of the liquid stuff because they're still working on that granular. It's still working its magic. It's gonna be releasing its nutrients over time. So go liquid on our tomatoes and basil today. And hopefully as I check in over the next few weeks, these guys are gonna be growing to the sky, putting out tons of fruit. I absolutely love my tomatoes. I put a lot of effort into my tomato crop each year. This past winter, we got really a hard hit with an early and nasty frost and freeze. So I'm really hoping that I have a wicked tomato crop this season. I gotta get it out before the nighttime temperatures get too hot. So that's why I'm not gonna delay on my fertility because I need these guys to get big and start fruiting and flowering and fruiting before the nighttime temperatures get above the mid 80s and the flowers start to abort. So time is of the essence on fertilizing these tomatoes. I cannot waste time. These are just a few of the little odds and ends that I have left over that are gonna still go in the ground. Those are all going to get liquid because they were given granular about a month ago. Any of the small starts, any of the larger starts like the tomatoes, they were given granular. The little guys haven't been fertilized at all yet. I'm just gonna give them a little liquid. So yep, this is just my little seedling table, things getting ready to go in or things that I'm selling here off the property. So they're just gonna get a little plant food. All right, and let's finish off our little fertilizing bonanza at a fruit tree. Now this one is definitely a good candidate for the granular. It's gonna take longer for this to break down. We're just gonna give this guava a little granular snack that's going to release over time. Good choice for a container, good choice for a fruit tree, longer, more steady fertility. I hope you guys learned a thing or two about fertilizer today and feeding the soil of your garden. I hope you're not just gonna jump right to fertilizer. I also hope you spend some time thinking about working your soil's health and nutrition up in some other ways. The best way is a multi-pronged approach. If you learned anything from this video, I hope it is that you need multiple strategies to have truly healthy soil. So give this a try. Let me know how it goes in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback, how the fertility program is in your garden. And the sun's starting to get really high and hot out here, which is not my favorite weather for putting out fertilizer. So I'm gonna head on in. Thanks guys, see you next time.